For my English class this semester in college, we learned a lot of things about a lot of stuff. But the three most important things that I learned were the importance of a character's name, the importance of background details, and the importance of authorial intent. So, first up, what will I be talking about today? You already know. Metal Gear. In Metal Gear, you play as, in any of the games, generally speaking, you play as a character that's either called Snake, or a variation of Snake, or they were called Snake and then they stopped being called Snake. Whatever. But the importance of the name Snake is kind of lost on you at first because what does that mean? It's just a code name because it's a military guy. It's a guy doing espionage, right? Uh, the name Snake, if you think about it, what are snakes? They're weird noodles that just Swiss. They do that. They slither. Uh, and then they bite you, and then you die. They're very stealthy creatures, unless it's like a rattlesnake, but like, snake in the grass, a snake in the grass, And snakes, they're deadly, they're sneaky, and they just love wiggling around on the ground. Well, what does every single snake that in the characters in the video games, what do they all have in common? They love just getting on the ground, getting dirty, and just wiggling side to side. Um, and also, they're very stealthy, and they will kill you. That's their job. It's a tactical espionage action game. And while the name Snake itself is important, there's only two characters actually ever referred to as just Snake. And one of them is a guy named Raiden. He has the codename Snake for like 5 minutes. We'll ignore him. But the very first two games and the fourth one, and I think they just have Snake, Solid Snake, I think. And Solid Snake, or Snake in the first two games, I'm pretty sure he's not solid yet, but just ignore that. Um, he does that. He's sneaky. Great. But what about the other snakes? Well, there's Solid Snake, as I mentioned. There's Liquid Snake, who you don't play as, but he is a guy. Uh, there's Solid Dis Snake. I'm not talking about him. He's a bad guy in one game. So unimportant. Um, and there's Naked Snake, and there's Punished Venom Snake. Well, let's just get into these snakes. Pile of snakes, pit of snakes, Indiana Jones. So, Solid Snake. Why is he called Solid Snake? Um, well, the reason he's called Solid Snake is because his brother's called Liquid. I guess. So Solid Snake is a clone, and Liquid Snake is also a clone. One of them got all of the dominant genes, one of them got all of the recessive genes. So to show, I guess, the duality, right? The, the similarities, but the differences, or whatever, they're named Solid and Liquid Snake, canonically. The actual reason for Solid Snake would his name would have to come from Hideo Kojima himself, the man who made the game. And Kojima is really bad at naming people. Really, really bad. Most of the characters in his games sound like Mega Man characters. It's just blank man. There's Dead Man, Die Hard Man, Heart Man, Bomb Man. Bomb Man is, I think, literally a Mega Man character, I think. Anyway, Hideo Kojima himself came up with the name Solid Snake and then Liquid Snake. I don't. Liquid was after Solid. I don't really know why, but whatever. Who cares? Uh, he named Solid first. I don't know why, but that's the canonical reason is because of the dominant recessive whatevers. Now, the next snake to show up in the series, other than Solidus or Raiden, is Naked Snake. However, important note: chronologically, he is the first snake. The very first snake ever was codenamed Naked Snake. Why is he naked? Um, there's a couple different ways of interpreting the nakedity of him, but I'd argue that the reason why he's called Naked Snake is because he is butt booty naked when it comes to actual tactical gear. Um, he is dropped into a jungle, and all of his gear is clothing, gun, gun again, I think, and like some rations and like a walkie-talkie. He is wholly unprepared for the experience that he's about to be in. In fact, he has to scavenge for food because otherwise he'll starve. That's how unprepared he is for the mission, or rather, how unprepared he is in the gear side of things. He's actually the most prepared out of any of the snakes, weirdly enough. Since he's the first snake, he has the most amount of time actually training because the clones age faster. So Naked Snake is actually very prepared mentally. Physically, he's not. Therefore, he's naked. He doesn't have anything outside of him, but he has himself. Big brain. Now then, next snake. Punished Venom Snake. This is where shit gets weird. So, Punished Venom Snake is not a clone of Naked Snake, but he is a mental clone of Naked Snake. A guy who saved Naked Snake's life, was then brainwashed into thinking that he is Snake. Um, okay. So he's not a clone, he's just a mental clone. What? Okay. It's kind of confusing, but basically, Naked Snake, or as I'll be referring to him from now on as Big Boss, uh, is a war criminal and overall a horrible person. Um, yeah, he's a really bad guy, like a really bad guy. Um, he's also a good guy, but mostly a bad guy. Basically, he was a good guy, and then he got traumatized, and then he was a bad guy. Bad stuff. And the problem with being this big bad guy is that everybody wants your head. So, how do we get the heat off of me? Well, we name a different guy after me and make him think that he's me. That's that is Snake. I'm not Snake, I'm Big Boss. Who knows? I'm just Big Boss. So that's fun, but how does that make wait a second. Punished Venom Snake? Could it be that he was punished by receiving all of the punishment that was meant for Big Boss? The answer is yes, obviously. He now has a target on his head and has to run an entire military on his own, kinda, mostly on his own, and go out and be a war criminal just because Big Boss decided that he escaped all punishment himself and punished Venom Snake. So he's punished Venom Snake. Cool. What pet Venom? Uh yes, actually fun thing about Venom is there's there's a couple reasons he could be called Venom. The one that I tend to lean towards is that he is venomous because he's the most dangerous of the snakes, which sounds confusing, but factually is true. He has all of that training that Big Boss had, except he also has this entire military installation that he just has. Um, so how does that actually affect the gameplay? Or rather, how is that reflected in gameplay? Because I can't just call him the most dangerous for no reason. Well, he has, and I'm not kidding when I say this, the most weapons, the most deadly weapons, a prosthetic arm that acts as a weapon. He can call in air support to shoot everybody. He can call in missile support to blow up everybody. He can call in friends to come kill everybody. He can call in tanks that he can drive. Not very tactical espionage of him, I'd argue. However, there's another two reasons that might be why he's called Venom Snake. One is that if you get bit by a snake on the hand, and then what are you going to do? Well, if you're quick enough, you can amputate your hand, I guess. Eh? Eh? I don't know, man. That was kind of dumb. But there is another reason. Metal Gear Solid 5 is the game that he's in. Well, actually, more accurately, Metal Gear Solid V is the game that he's in. Which V is the Roman numeral for 5, but what if Hideo Kojima himself said that this isn't the fifth game? This is V. And what if he himself called your character V? Punished Venom Snake is no snake at all. He's just V. Hmm. Interesting thoughts. Interesting thoughts. But that's enough about names. Let's get into some background details that I think are important. So, when I was, taking English class, whatever, we watched a movie, and I was told that every background detail was placed there by somebody, and I was like, oh my god, that's actually true, unless they were filming on set or if it was an accident. However, it's even more true for video games because it had to literally be programmed in there. Quite literally, physically speaking, somebody had to type that in there. It wasn't just made by nature, it was made by man. And that's where some really neat background details really tend to show up. Like, for example, um, you know how I said that Big Boss is, I guess, the progenitor to V, or rather, V is a mental clone of Big Boss. Well, we don't learn that until like the end of the game. So, was it foreshadowed? The answer is yes, of course it was. Duh. In the very first scene of the entire game, you see Big Boss, the man we all know and love as Snake, Big Boss, puts down a little tape recorder, and it's named and plays hit song "The Man Who Sold the World."
Oh no, not me. I never lost control.
Now we cut to waking up in a hospital bed, and what's playing on the radio other than The Man Who Sold the World?
Your face to face with the man who sold the world.
Wow. Actually, that just makes it sound like we are Big Boss. Or does it? Because if you look to your left, you can actually see, still the opening shot, practically speaking, a nurse walks by with a gargantuan bouquet of flowers for just some guy that's to the left of you. And then one of these flowers is placed in a vase, your vase. She took one from that bouquet and put it in your vase. And these flowers are actually significant to Big Boss. They were the flowers that made Big Boss. Naked Snake had to kill his boss, and when he did, they were in a field of these gorgeous blue, white flowers, moonlit flowers. And these white flowers then changed to red. Hmm. But what's brought in other than a quote bouquet of these flowers, but to the guy to the left of you? Interesting, interesting. Now, okay, maybe that guy is like more popular than you somehow, even though Snake, the title currently, boss, big boss, yeah, all that, is currently a war hero more than a war criminal. He's known as a war hero, but he is a war criminal and a war hero, but then his name was erased from history. But let's not get into that. What's important is that you should be getting these flowers, not some guy to your left. Then you're attacked. And who saves you but the guy to your left? Hmm. He calls you, well, actually, your doctor calls you Ahab. And the guy to your left is like, oh, hey, what's up, Ahab? Which is something that he literally just shouldn't know. Like maybe he overheard you or something, but like, I'm not buying it. He shouldn't know that. But what does he call himself? Well, he calls himself Ishmael. Moby Dick? Okay, that's kind of silly. Kind of silly, kind of funny. Oh, it's like, but Ishmael is the narrator for most of Moby Dick. He's the guy that starts you up. Call me Ishmael. And Ahab is just the captain. He's the guy in the story, the important guy or whatever, that follows the second half of the story, but you start with Ishmael, if I remember correctly. Hmm. Interesting. And early critics thought that they were the same guy. Hmm. Very interesting, Moby Dick. Hmm. Basically, what I'm trying to say with that is that obviously you played that snake first, chronologically and in real life. He was in the third game. And then you play as this snake in fifth game, which is second game chronologically. Let's just skip over that. Um, but you play as him in the next game, the next part of that story, the story of Big Boss, because you are called Big Boss as well. Big Boss is Big Boss, but you are also Big Boss. But he's Big Boss. He's the bigger boss. He's the biggest boss, and you're merely a big boss. I don't know. It's stupid. Anyway, this is just a nice little another background detail. Is that bit more Moby Dick? What is the helicopter that picks you up and helps you out and kills people and whatnot? Pequod. Pequod, as in the ship Pequod, Moby Dick. That's just a fun little detail. I don't think that has much significance. It does, but I'm not going to get into that. Another little background detail that I find really cool. He's got a little horn right here. Some shrapnel stuck in the skull of our beloved V slash Big Boss slash Punish Venom Snake. And that little shrapnel, if you are a horrible person, it gets big. Very big. Let's say, I don't know, you kill a child. It's gonna boink. Let's say you keep killing your own soldiers for no reason. Boink. But what if you're an awesome guy and you save those child soldiers? This game's weird. And you get garner the respect of everybody around you for saving prisoners and doing other heroic stuff like, I don't know, not war crimes. Well, it gets smaller. Interesting. And this fella also is this man, this the myth, the legend, Big Boss slash Punishment and Snake slash V. He calls himself a devil at the very beginning of the game and throughout, but he says, "Look at me, I'm a devil," in reference to that spike that looks like a horn that gets bigger if he does awful things. And you're not told this like in gameplay. You just have to literally see it. Like you will see if you're an awful person, then it gets big. You get a big giant horn because you're a devil, you're a demon. But otherwise, it really does just look like you have shrapnel left in your head that you can't really do anything about. Not so much a horn, which is a really interesting and fun little detail with big significance. I wonder what Hideo Kojima meant by that. In fact, that's a common thing in really every one of Hideo Kojima's video games, literally all of them. His fans will ask the simple question, what did Kojima mean by this? Usually as a joke.
Boo! Scared you. To cut a tangent really short, like this is a really long tangent I went on. The origin of the what did Kojima mean by this bit in the community is probably from Metal Gear Solid 3, where there's a scene that is integral to the game. The entire second half of the game happens because the bad guy um, fondles his what he presumes is his lieutenant's junk, and it's not actually his lieutenant. It's just Snake in a perfect disguise. Except the bad guy's like, "Wait a second, this isn't my man. This doesn't feel right." And yeah, so in the what did Kojima mean by this bit was probably from there, where it's just people asking, "Why is this here?" Because there's a million other ways that Snake could have gotten caught, and then the second act of the game could have happened, but he chose that, which it's more than fine if you want to put homoerotic themes in your games. He does that a lot, but it kind of started with that scene, and it's like that's kind of weird, dude. The series isn't that sexualized otherwise, and if it is, it's men on men. But in this game, there is a femme fatale, but then like she tries to work her charms on Snake, and then he just doesn't respond at all. He doesn't know. And then after the mission's over and they've bonded, then she gets him, and then she steals his stuff because it's espionage. That's the whole point of the franchise. Espionage, tactical espionage action. Come on, spies. Spies steal stuff from other spies by sleeping with them or whatever. I've watched Archer. Um, but yeah, it's just like a really weirdly sexual thing. Regardless of what sexuality it is, it's just a weird thing, man. Uh, so what did he mean by that? Why is that in the game? And that's kind of the origin of the what did Kojima mean by this bit. Um, but while we can have a million guesses as to what Kojima meant by having that in the game for some reason, um, we can't actually know what Kojima meant by that or what Kojima means by anything. Because he's the author, dude. And I don't know the author's intent. I don't know his authorial intent. I could read every single one of his interviews and articles and watch every podcast and watch his entire series on Disney Plus, but not in America, literally about his thought process in making games and how he made games. Um, but I I'm not Kojima, right? So I can't actually know what he meant by any of this because I'm not Kojima. Uh, we can make our best guess. We can try to figure out what he meant by everything. I mean, the franchise as a whole has a pretty easy to understand message. War is bad, but it will never end because humans just can't live without it. That's a pretty easy message to understand. But like, um, whenever I said, "What did Kojima mean by this?" earlier, I was saying, well, what does the venom in Punished Venom Snake mean? What does Solid Snake mean? Is it a crass joke? Probably not. He did. I assume he didn't know enough English at the time to make that, because that Metal Gear Solid, not even Metal Gear Solid, Metal Gear One, and that was a while ago. Anyway, um, yeah. So I'm not Kojima. I don't know what he means, and that's something that's really important that I learned, is that, like, just because I think a certain way, or I understood this a certain way, or that everybody thinks this way, or blah blah blah, we truly don't know what the author meant unless expressly told in the plainest of terms when they were writing it. Because otherwise, you get stuff that's like, I don't think that was your intent, like with J.K. Rowling or whatever, where she made like half of the characters gay after the fact, which is fine, I guess, but like their sexuality isn't really important, I don't think, to the story. Um, and that also other things that J.K. Rowling said that I can't talk about. Rather, I won't talk about. Hell no. That's my opinion, J.K. Rowling. But yeah, so authorial intent, I learned it. And Kojima likes some mountain man action, which is a little weird for a man who's married with children to a wife, but you know what? As long as you're happy, Kojima. As long as you're happy. In conclusion, I learned how important a character's name is and how to analyze what that character's name could mean. Examples including Snake, 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 Snake. That's a Metal Gear reference. I also learned how important background details are. With background details in specifically Metal Gear Solid 5 quite literally showing you, like, foreshadowing the big reveal at the end of the game and how important that is. And it showed the development of the character through punished Venom Snake's horn, and it's showing that he's becoming more evil or he's good. And I learned how important it is that we, as an audience, reader, player, whatever, understand that we don't know exactly what the author meant. We can only do our best to figure that out. And whatever we come up with is important and does matter, even if it's not everything that the author meant, because we don't know everything the author meant, especially if that author is Hideo Kojima. I seriously cannot explain how confusing his games are. I think you got a good idea, though. Credit section. Characters are from images and characters. All likenesses, all that are from Metal Gear 2, Solid Snake, Metal Gear Solid 2, Sons of Liberty, Metal Gear Solid 3, Snake Eater, Metal Gear Solid 4, Guns of the Patriots, Metal Gear Solid Peace Walker, Metal Gear Solid 5, Ground Zeroes, and Metal Gear Solid 5, The Phantom Pain. And
My name.
uh,
I can't play
other
this
characters
game,
are
so I
from
ask
the
again, will you
one character
say
from the Mega Man franchise,
my
Bomberman,
name?
and
Is the
the rest of those
memory
guys were from
gone? Are
Death
you
Stranding 1, and I
feeling
used one
numb,
image
or
from
have
Death Stranding
I
2.
become invisible?